Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to you lovely folks joining me here nice and early over at Marvel Snap Zone. Welcome back for yet another daily deck highlights segment showing you some of the coolest decks out there in the community that maybe you want to go and jam on the Marvel Snap ladder yourself. We're back today with a very interesting budget choice, actually. Lovely to see this, some Pool 3 decks that are kind of known and established and dominating, but you guys out there finding ways to play them while you're waiting to unlock other cards from Pool 3. And more so, in some cases, writing these fantastic guides about them, and we think those are definitely worth sharing. So if you're interested in getting a deck like this on the series yourself, you can do that by submitting it via the Marvel Snap Zone deck builder. Coming at us in Discord, we've got a Discord server with nearly 2,500 members in the description box down below. You can at us down there and submit your decks as well, or just tag us on Twitter at Marvel Snap Zone and we can take a look too. But if you really want the highest chance possible, these incredibly long, in-depth guides are definitely the way to do it, because we love to share those so people have an idea of what you were thinking when you built this deck. So this deck is a budget version of mainstay Negative Seratonin. This is put together by a user named PT. We've featured them on the channel before with a really cool Pool 2 anti-meta deck they previously wrote a walkthrough for. Alcahest here clearly enjoying the play patterns of Mr. Negative and Sarah, wants to show you how to best use those cards should you be lucky enough to crack them open early in your Pool 3 journey and are still missing some of the other haymakers that Pool 3 has to offer. So that's what we're going to be exploring today. As you might notice around me, folks, we've had some changes in the overlay for videos like this. We've had some fantastic feedback in the YouTube comments section on the website, via our contact form, in the Discord server, all kinds of places. So I'm trying to do my best to make this look as good and as convenient for you guys as possible. So please do me a favour, let me know what you think of this overlay and the in-game overlay in the comments section below. It is a bit rustic still, got a few things to work on, but I think it's a lot better than it was previously. But your feedback is super appreciated, otherwise how am I supposed to make it better and make it work for you? With everything said and done, just before we go into the deck and break this down for you, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing over here on YouTube. We want to keep making more content for you guys, showcasing great community decks and publishing those tier lists to keep you at the top of everything Marvel Snap. So if you are enjoying what we're putting out, hit the bell, turn on notifications, and make sure you do not miss anything published by the team over here at Marvel Snap Zone. So with that all said and done, let us take a look at this list from PT. If you're not familiar with Negative Seratonin, it's a pretty well-known deck, honestly, based around two cards in particular. We've got Sarah. Sarah here is a fantastic 5-cost card that sees play all over the shop in Marvel Snap, reducing the cost of everything in your hand by 1 down to a minimum of 1. When this is paired with Mr. Negative, a card that will swap the power and costs of all cards in your deck, it tends to lead to some exceptionally explosive turn 6s, because things just cost significantly less than they should. Atlas here, as I say, very much making this list on a budget. Very few Pool 3 cards outside of the few needed pieces to try and leverage this game plan as early as possible if you enjoy these play patterns. So you'll see a lot of mainstays in this deck that are just kind of popular in other decks across the format. We've got things like Bishop, which obviously becomes a 1/3 under Mr. Negative, which is fantastic for a last turn chain of cards. Angela, very much the same story, 1-cost card that can suddenly become very, very large on that last turn of the game. Things like Wolfsbane, again, suddenly cost 1 and have huge amounts of stats for their cost if they've had everything inverted and flipped over. Iron Man, of course, the biggest haymaker of the bunch. This becomes a 0-cost 5-power card that still has that incredible effect attached onto it. Blue Marvel, not necessarily an obvious inclusion to an archetype like this, but really solid at being 3-cost 5-power, great anthem on that final turn, plays very well with all these 1-cost cards we're playing towards the end as well. Jubilee, pretty solid card when we have such a large amount of high-cost cards we're looking to invert, and also pretty good as a 1-cost 4-power card on the last turn of the game as well. Interesting choice here in the form of Okoye, doesn't play particularly well with everything else that we're doing. In fact, I think this is somewhat of a bit of an anti-combo to an extent with Mr. Negative. So I'm really interested to see exactly what this is doing here, and hopefully I'm proved wrong about it. Really cool card all round, just a little surprised to see it in this shell. The rest of this deck very much padded out by the looks of it with some anti-meta choices. Things like Shang-Chi, just exceptionally powerful right now, as is a card like Cosmo, to give you more game into opponents' main strategies. Last but not least, Mr. Fantastic makes an appearance in this deck, plays very well with everything we're trying to do, can cost 1 on that final turn, and help you support multiple locations at the same time. If you're looking for a detailed breakdown about how this deck is intended to work, as I say, the guide linked in the description box below in our article is actually exceptionally detailed. It goes into turn-by-turn plays and shows you some of the pros and cons of playing this deck early if you want to. So well worth checking out, and massive credit to Algahes PT for putting in the work to get this thing featured and sharing all that knowledge with you guys. Cool, and with that we're going to flip on over to our brand new game overlay and hopefully get ourselves a small handful of games in with this budget Negative Seratonin list in order to show you exactly what it is all about. So, 3 games coming, let's see what we can do with this one. This hand, a little bit clunky, but we do have Sera available to us. It's going to hopefully be very strong down the line, especially if we can find Mr. Negative on time. So no turn 1 play for us, unsurprisingly. Kind of impossible in this deck due to the way that it's constructed. 1-drops kind of just don't play particularly well with what you're trying to do. Okay, this is not the best central location. This is going to be a pretty good curve, though. The problem is I probably have to avoid playing into Lacuguela. Is that how you pronounce? My pronunciation of these locations absolutely blows chunks. Normally I would play Mr. Fantastic there, but I think I'm going to have to avoid it, to be honest. Because I really don't want to put rocks into my deck to draw with Mr. Negative. New York on the right. Okay, so I think what I'm actually going to do is aggressively snap here. And I'm going to play out Bishop to start with. Then go Negative on 4, Sera on 5. And hopefully the cards we draw just let us do some absolutely redonkulous stuff to show you exactly what this is all about. The kind of key to this deck you'll find, I think at least, is that snapping early is the biggest perk you have. A lot of your power comes in the late game where you do some truly ridiculous things. So being able to snap early and aggressively when you draw these key cards is going to be what earns you an absolute boatload of cubes when possible, because your opponent can't possibly see what's coming in anywhere near enough time. So opponent going to Ironheart, juice their stuff up, flip it back into the deck with Lockjaw, finds a Jubilee. Okay, and their Jubilee is going to find an Iceman. That's actually pretty good for us, honestly. Thankfully, the Iceman did not hit Sera, so we're looking to be A-okay in terms of the plan. We draw the Okoye. That's really kind of my concern with this card in the deck, to be honest. Kind of a blank, unfortunately. We are just going to go Sera here into Wakandan Embassy. I think we're probably going to have to fight for Lecuguela on the final turn of the game here. Try and stack stats on the Embassy here first, and then fight on turn 6. Hopefully we draw something that's relevantly negative. The White Tiger gets flipped away into an Odin. Okay. That's mostly okay, I think. We probably weren't playing the Iceman anyway. This could be a bit of a toughie, just because our hand did not... Well, yeah, look, this is kind of my concern with these cards with Negative, is that they're just really not very good hits once you negative them. That being said, our final turn is pretty good here off the back of Sera. So let's just go... Fantastic... Cosmo Wolfsbane? Unfortunately, we're a little short of doing everything. Is this going to be enough in the mid? Probably not. Yeah, definitely drew some blanks here, which was my concern with some of these tech choices and this Okoye. I think I'm taking the risk on this one. Opponent moves the Nightcrawler over. Yeah, we are unfortunately kind of buried if they played mid. Okay, well, I think this was a pretty good example of what the deck is trying to do. But unfortunately, we kind of drew some blanks after we negatived, which means that our final turn really wasn't actually that strong. Meaning we do come up a little short in this first game. It's going to burn some cubes on our behalf, but that's okay. Reasonable showcase of what you're trying to do. Just didn't draw particularly well after doing it. So let's try that again. Let's head on in for game number 2. Hopefully we can do more of the same and find some of those Iron Men and similar stuff. Definitely a strange one to not see cards like White Tiger and stuff in this list. They're normally things you expect to see alongside Mr. Negative, but I suppose this deck is heavy enough on 5-cost cards anyway. We do get to make a sneaky turn 1 play here off the back of this Super Flow. We get to play out this Angela. We don't want to play it into the Super Flow, so we're just going to play it mid. And hopefully the location doesn't punish us all too much in the process. Put it with a Mr. Sinister into the Super Flow. That's an unconventional choice. Maybe they just don't want the spare energy. Cards costing 1 less is already pretty good. Okay, I'm once again going to aggressively snap here now that we are negativing on turn 2 in this particular game. And hopefully playing Sarah on turn 3 and our deck just becomes silly. Here's hoping. Well, that's a 0-cost 4-power Jubilee, which is very, very dumb. So I think we're going to go Sarah Jubilee. Try and fill up the raft as well while we're at it. This is a heck of a spicy game. Most of our deck is going to cost like 0 now. Wolfsbane mid, sure. Probably making some unconventional choices here, but we're definitely showing off what we can do. What does Jubilee find? A big old Shang-Chi. Unfortunately, no targets for that here currently, but that's alright. Chunks of energy. This is a 1-cost blue marble. That's pretty good. I mean, we can just play it all here, so that's what I'm going to do. Get ourselves a free 0-cost 6-drop in the process as well. Yeah, this one definitely showing off some of the silly things you can do. We find ourselves with a very, very 0-costed Hela. Blue Marble juicing up our stuff. Iron Man mid here to really jump up our stats. White Tiger, sure. Well, this Okoye is not doing an awful lot, but I'm pretty happy to play it mid and start building into the Super Flow here as well. I think it's pretty hard for us to lose mid, so we'll just pop it in there, have a whole 36 stats. Opponent will Blue Marble on the left. Good chance we can just win all 3 locations here, which is kind of silly. This is a very, very free Mr. Fantastic. We'll even add more juice to our Elysium. Yeah, this one was definitely something, huh? Opponent with the Patriot into another Patriot. Is that enough? It is not. We're all good. Still held onto the raft on the right-hand side. Yeah, well, that was kind of silly. Elysium, Mr. Negative Sarah altogether, unsurprisingly, kind of lets you just play your entire hand out with no real questions asked. 1 for 1 on the negative shell. Let us see if we can find a positive record with this budget version of Negative Seratonin. Okay, Mr. Negative to start is definitely what we're looking for. Even an Angela on turn 2. This looks like a pretty good play pattern to me. I'm almost kind of half tempted to snap now. I think I'm going to try and see what my opponent's on first. A part of me is very, very tempted to just immediately snap on turn 1. Hand is quite good. Wakandan Embassy. We do draw Iron Man, which is a little unfortunate. You don't really want to see that one. I think I'm going to snap. I think I'm snapping with this deck again. Definitely just kind of feels like a deck that you early snap with as much as possible once you find either Negative or Sarah or both. Because they let you do some very unfair things towards the end. Again, folks, do let me know what you think about the overlay. I know it's a bit clunky still at the moment, some things to tweak, but I'm pretty happy with it, and hopefully you are too. Draw step number tray. We find Bar Sinister. Okay. The Shang-Chi might be helpful in a world where Bar Sinister is something we have to worry about. I think I'm playing Bishop on the left here. Opponent will forge their Mr. Sinister, so That's some big boys in the middle there. Angela can contest that. Okay, so we're definitely not playing this into Bar Sinister. Let's invert. Sadly, no stats on this Iron Man. If we were able to flip this with negative, or maybe you'd got the bonus on it from Wakandan Embassy, it'd be a heck of a target for Bar Sinister. Alas, our opponent's going to storm it out. Okay. So no Bar Sinister shenanigans. We are flooding. Guess we have to Jubilee into flooding here. Mr. Fantastic isn't a bad one, to be honest. None of our cards are bad to flip into Grand Central either, which is kind of nice. We'd definitely rather keep the Mr. Fantastic, but if we don't, it's not the end of the world. It does make the flooding location bigger, though, which is definitely very promising for us here, depending on what we flip in with Jubilee. They have a Black Panther. Okay, that thing is big. This is going to be kind of hard to win flooding, I think. Oh, Cosmo, you couldn't have come down a little bit earlier for me, could you? Oh, not having priority there sucks. Okay, Iron Man into the left is really good. That's like the best possible hit for us. Opponent has a Killmonger, sure. Kills their own Sunspot. Value. I really wish I could get the Shang-Chi over into the flooded area, but alas, that's not something we can do. So I think I'm just playing to the Wakandan Embassy here and hoping my stats increases are enough. Definitely a close one, this. Don't really feel confident snapping if I hadn't already. Opponent has Lizard. Wow. Okay. So quite a decent chunk of stats at the end here as well. Do we have quite enough to get over the line? Up to 11. Mr. Blue Marble comes down. There should be enough. Heck yeah. Look at that. Another 4 cubes for our lovely budget negative serotonin deck. 2-1 on this one for Alcahest. Really good showing. Didn't really get to see too much of the tech cards, unfortunately. But we did see very much what the deck is trying to do and what it is based around, what the plan is here. And goes to show you again, you just don't need oceans of pull 3 cards to play these decks that are on our tier list. You can find ways to play variations of them while you're still waiting to unlock some of those cards. I think this guide from Alcahest is very, very cool. And super detailed and definitely worth giving a read if you haven't already. I can see the argument for Cosmo and Shang-Chi. I'm definitely a little skeptical about Okoye. Definitely seems like the kind of card I'd be looking to replace first in an ideal world. If you've already got access to it, something like Mojo is probably one of the better inclusions in a spot like that. But you can definitely find your own flavour of the week, depending on what it is that you'd like to reduce and or flip over with Mr. Negative and Sarah. So this has been a fantastic deck tech. Thank you very much, Algahaz, for sharing this one on the site. Once again, folks, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel here on Marvel Snap Zone. Looking to make this more of a daily deal and keep putting up articles and videos for you each and every day for all things Marvel Snap. So show your support if you're enjoying what's going on. It is definitely much appreciated. Until next time, I have been HowlingMines. You have been amazing, and this has been Marvel Snap Zone. Take care. Have a good one.